I'd like to show you some of the Greek vases kept on display here in the school's museum, known as the Treasury and housed in a stable block, constructed in the 1300s. Classicists too often resign the study of Greek vases and of classical art in general to art historians, preferring to access the ancient world through written texts instead. When a Winchester teacher, the Reverend Arthur Bather, travelled to Greece in the 1890s, he went armed with a conviction that the study of Greek vases could contribute meaningfully to the study of the ancient world, and with a budget to bring a crate load back to Winchester. When faced with a Greek vase, you can't help but wonder what it was for. We have a wonderful array of vase types here, from a lekuthos, an oil flask, to a hydria, a water jug. The vases which I'd like to show you today all have as their context the Symposium, the drinking party beloved by wealthy Greeks and made immortal via the Athenian philosopher Plato's dialogue of the same name. James here studies classics at A-level. James, can you tell me a bit more about Plato's Symposium?
Well, the dramatic context of the Symposium is a drinking party in Athens in 416 BC. The main characters present include Socrates, who features heavily in many of Plato's dialogues, Alcibiades, the flamboyant Athenian politician and statesman, and also Aristophanes, the famous comic dramatist. The main dialogue consists of each speaker taking it in turns to deliver a speech in praise of love, each differing on their own interpretation of what love is.
Yes, that's right. And their wine would have started off in a vase like this, known as a bell crater. The Greeks didn't drink their wine neat. For them, that was what uncivilized barbarians did, but instead mixed it with water in a crater. At the Symposium, there was a master of ceremonies whose job it was to vary the ratio so that the participants could stay at the optimum level of tipsiness for stimulating conversation. What about the decoration on the vase?
Well, there's a seated figure in the middle, flanked by two standing ones. There are enough clues here to work out fairly easily that the seated figure is Dionysus, the Greek god of wine. On his left is a Maenad, a female follower of Dionysus, also known as the Bacchae. These are the characters that rip apart King Pentheus in Euripides' tragedy of the same name. She and the god are both holding a thyrsus, which is a long wand entwined with ivy leaves at the tip, and which is commonly associated with Dionysiac worship. On the right-hand side is a satyr, half human and half beast, and a traditional companion of Dionysus.
All in all, a fitting trio to grace a vase for mixing wine at a symposium. We know this isn't one that Socrates could have gazed on, as it was produced in southern Italy in about 380 BC, a couple of decades after Socrates' death. It is in the red figure style that had been popular in Athens since its invention, circa 530 BC, and the red colour comes from the clay itself. I like the fact that there are other vases depicted on this vase. The satyr holds a bucket, presumably containing wine, and the Maenad certainly is offering Dionysus a drinking vessel of a type called a skyphos, of which we have a number of good examples in our collection. Let's have a look at one of them now. Now, what do you make of this, James?
I think it's fantastically beautiful. I love the subject matter. We have some Maenads again, although this time they're riding goats. I also like the way the tree is depicted, with its wavy branches, and the poses of the white herons. There are also these elegant borders at top and bottom.
The goats seem like a fine means of transportation. It's an animal that's closely associated with Dionysus, and indeed, one of the art forms of which he was patron, tragedy, literally translates as goat song, presumably because a goat was offered as a prize to the winning playwright at a festival of Dionysus.
Well, this vase isn't red figure, is it? It's black figure. This was the dominant style before red figure came in. So I would suppose that this is much older than the crater we were just looking at.
That's absolutely right. This skyphos was made probably between 520 and 500 BC at Athens. We actually know who produced it, though not his exact name. We call him the Theseus painter, because several of the over 200 surviving vases that have been attributed to him show scenes from the legend of Theseus.
But how do we know that these vases were produced by the same artists?
Scholars have spent time cataloguing and comparing vases, identifying individual hands. Sometimes they sign their wares, so there is a name. At other times, favoured subject matter or the location of a famous example of their work has to serve instead. Here, in fact, is a drinking cup decorated by someone called the Winchester painter. It is of a much shallower type than the skyphos we saw just now. It's called a kylix. What's this one got on it?
Well, this one has another satyr in the middle of the vase. He's holding a wineskin and another thyrsus. But it's interesting that this satyr is much more bestial in nature. I'm particularly thinking of the horse's tail that he sports, which I gather is more common in earlier depictions of satyrs, and it's only over time that they become more goat-like.
Yes, they seem to become assimilated with the figure of Pan. What about the underside?
Well, there are these wonderful eyes, which seem to remind me of the decorations on Greek warships. And there are also lots of lovely floral motifs. In addition, 2 male athletes who are carrying weights, which, I've read, were supposed to increase the distance of a long jump. Athletes were a frequent subject on drinking vessels, and we can link this back to the sense that we get from Plato's Symposium, that adolescent male beauty was a common topic of discussion at these drinking parties.
That's right. Well, today we have admired the beauty of these vases, but we've also seen how they can enrich our understanding of the historical periods and the literary texts that we study in our classics lessons.